From SF Land, this is Dorking Out, a podcast for people who love to dork out about movies, TV, and everything pop culture.
Welcome to Dorking Out. My name is Sonia Mansfield, and I'll do whatever it takes. Joining me today is my friend and former co-host of Dorking Out, Emmy-winning filmmaker, Christopher Allan Smith. Hello.
Hey there, how you doing?
Good. How are you, my friend?
Good.
Good.
Very busy, very pressed, but very excited to talk about Avengers Endgame.
Me too.
When this came out, I thought about when we first started the show and tracking the evolution and the development of the MCU as a kind of feat of spectacular filmmaking was something we did on the show.
Yes.
And then I just realized it's like, oh, this is kind of not the end, but this is like the culmination.
It is.
The crescendo.
Yeah. So
of this whole era. So I was very excited so I basically begged to come back on the show.
So
to talk about
listeners may notice that Margot isn't here, and that's because Smith collected all the Infinity Stones and snapped his fingers.
That's right. I said this audience, now that I've left the show, the Dorking Out audience is getting too big. It's getting too successful. So I'm going to come on and cut the audience in half. So
Smith is the worst.
That's
No,
right.
Come on, you guys. It's fine. There's nobody I'd want to talk to Avengers Endgame with other than you, of course.
That's right. You hear that, David? You hear that?
Oh, poor David.
I'm number one.
So after 11 years and 22 movies, it's all come down to this. Sort of. Because
Right.
it's not the last Marvel movie, despite the name. There's plenty of Marvel movies in the work. We're going to jump right into spoilers because we don't want this podcast to be as long as Avengers Endgame. So if you haven't seen it, you probably shouldn't be listening to this. Or if you want it spoiled for you, you're in the right place.
Yeah, and what a weirdo you are. What
I know.
a weird choice. But anyway,
Smith,
it's not for me to judge.
Can you guess what the first thing I'm going to say about Avengers Endgame is?
I can, but you're wrong. You're definitely wrong, but I'm going to guess the first thing that you're going to say is, Chris, I've missed you so much. I don't know how I can do the show without you.
No.
Why won't you come back?
No.
And Sonia, I'm sorry. I'm just too busy working on the documentary. I've got too much stuff to do. I just can't come back no matter how much begging and pleading you do. Is that what you were going to say?
Oh, darn. You totally knew what I was going to say.
It's too long.
This movie's too long. It is way too long. It is too long.
Crazy.
You don't think this movie's too long?
I don't, but that's because I think it's a kind of movie.
I
this
don't
is gonna
because
sound crazy.
I don't have a bladder.
That's right. That's right. This is going to sound crazy, especially at this level of ridiculous corporate filmmaking. This movie does something that no movie in the history of Hollywood has ever done, which, almost 100 years into filmmaking is a crazy thing to say. But no, I don't think it's too long, and we can get into all the specific reasons and everything and what I mean by all that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, so let's start with this. Obviously, You've talked about this already. You and I talked about Marvel movies a lot on this podcast. It's like probably I swear to God, I think once a month we did an episode about Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
And we always kind of landed on the same thing, that the overarching story is really like Iron Man and Captain America. It's like their stories. Even like the other movies, there's like Ant-Man and Black Panther and all those things, and they all tie back into the Thanos storyline, which then is really about Iron Man and Captain America. How do you feel about how those stories played out?
I was unbelievably happy with how those stories played out.
Okay.
It is a crazy feat of filmmaking to start both of their movies almost 10 years ago, or both of their series almost 10 years ago, and thematically develop them throughout 22 movies, both in their own little, Captain America 3-movie run, Iron Man 3-movie run, the Avengers now 4-movie run, to have them develop and be consistent and meaningful in a thematic way for 10 years. It's when all of the writers have changed, the producers have changed, except for Kevin Feige, the directors have changed.
Right.
Everything has changed around them. But it's for them to develop, Tony going from a place of total narcissism and self-interest to a place of self-sacrifice and heroism, and from Steve Rogers to go from a place of almost too much selflessness. I mean, completely selfless, completely one for the team, to somebody that, acknowledges that they need to have some sort of life for themselves, is just really touching and meaningful and spectacular. And it's just, I am flabbergasted. This might be the last time that the Marvel Cinematic Universe can flabbergast me, but it's flabbergasted me several times in the kind of crazy cinematic feats that they're able to pull off, where everyone before them had failed and failed and failed. There's a reason comic book movies used to have the reputation that they did,
right?
Because they were almost all awful, and the fact that these were so good so consistently was just nuts. And to have a meaningful conclusion, is just, it's not something that's been done in films.
So you didn't like it, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
This movie's shit.
No, I liked it a lot.
What a garbage movie.
I really liked it, but I think I might not be done with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's kind of like it's gone to a place of completion, and the story that started 11 years ago has resolved. And I'll kind of dip in and dip out from now on, but I don't feel like the kind of the fever of, I've got to see the next one.
That's interesting, because I think I was already that way before this movie, which is why I kind of didn't run out and see it right away. Like, a lot of people I know saw it like Thursday or Friday that it opened, and I didn't go until the following Thursday night. So a week later, which, is still pretty soon for your average person, but for like movie dorks, it's an eternity. It's an eternity. And, I basically had to stay off social media because I didn't want anyone to ruin anything for me, even though there wasn't anything in the movie that like super surprised me. So but you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want it spoiled for me. So,
right.
But I think I felt a little Marvel movie fatigue before I even went in there. So then by the time I was like halfway through the movie, I was like, okay, this is too long.
Right.
Like, I feel like I've seen this before, and it was called Back to the Future 2. And that's fine too. Like, I'm fine with that.
I love that they took Back to the Future 2 as their inspiration for the structure of this movie.
I think the last hour of this movie is fucking rad.
Yeah.
It's rad. Like, it's really exciting. You get all those moments you like. I like seeing superheroes do their thing, you know? So that part was really, really exciting. But like getting to that part, it wasn't super consistent for me I wasn't like invested the entire time.
Yeah.
Which kind of surprised me. There were a couple of things where I was like, okay, I get, like, what do you think about what they did to the Hulk?
I guess that's the thing is.
Let's start with that.
Well, what they did with the Hulk is they essentially melded Bruce Banner and the Incredible Hulk into one thing. So it's essentially the Hulk now has Mark Ruffalo's face and all this stuff, which here's the thing. I think I've said it before, but here's the thing about Marvel is I have never read one Marvel comic.
Right.
I do not care about the Marvel comics. I do not care if they're faithful to the comics. I do not care. I don't care. Well, for any comic book movie, I don't
send
really
your
care.
hate mail to.
I don't care if they're
send your angry tweets to at Jet Jargons.
Right. But apparently they had done this in the comic where they kind of did this, and so it's kind of like, okay, fine. I thought it was fun. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was, given what they had done in Infinity War, where they kind of showed that the regular Hulk was too scared to come out anymore.
Right.
I thought it was interesting. I thought it was fun. It was, it's the thing about this movie that is so amazing. And I've seen it twice now. And the first thing that I thought when you made your mention of it being too long is there was a moment about an hour in the first time I saw it where it's like, uh-oh, I don't know. This seems to be meandering a little bit. This seems to be, why are we paying attention to this? So I was starting to get pretty nervous.
Yeah.
And then
what scene was that?
I think it was you know what? Actually, now that you mention it, I think it might have been when they went to see the Hulk for the first time. So it's just kind of like it felt like
it felt like a joke that was going on too long to me.
Right. It felt like, why are we still doing this? Why hasn't the movie kicked in? Mm-hmm. But then after so I watched it, and usually this is the way it is with me in these big hugely hyped movies, is I need to see it once just to like, okay, I've seen it. Now I can relax and go back and watch it again. And then when I did that, it's like I really liked almost every bit of it. I liked it. This is going to sound kind of crazy when I say it like this.
I'll be the judge.
The more I read about this movie and listen to other critics that I enjoy talk about it, this is an awful lot like a David Lean movie, in that it is a huge movie on a ridiculously huge scale, but it's filled with very specific, very clear, very engaging small character moments. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the reasons that this movie has been getting kind of the astonishing levels of love and happy freakouts.
Well, I think that's because everyone has their favorite characters in this movie, and so many of those characters get their moment. Yeah, so you're going to leave the movie satisfied because chances are your favorite character gets a moment that you're like, fuck yeah,
exactly.
So you're gonna get your moment, and you're gonna leave like, with your fist like pumped in the air, like, yeah, unless your favorite character is like Black Widow or Black Widow is one. She did or I can't pronounce her name. Oki from Oki from Black Panther, the super badass warrior. I'm like, I would have liked more of her, stuff like that. But
yeah, I hear you. I mean, that's the thing that's so great about this is, what I said earlier is that no movie in the history of movies has done anything like this, which is no movie has served as the culmination for 22 other movies or 21 other movies.
Right.
If you think about it, what they did was they had like an Iron Man trilogy, a Thor trilogy, Captain America trilogy, and then a bunch of these, 2 Guardians of the Galaxy movies, Spider-Man movie. They've, all these other movies that they've done. And it's almost like, okay, we're going to make a movie that combines Star Wars and Indiana Jones and James Bond and Die Hard and, Fern Gully or whatever, just some crazy out of
Gully.
Whatever. Well, that's what I mean. It's just like the fact that they're putting Iron Man plus the Guardians of the Galaxy in the same thing and it's working. It's just such a weird. But anyway, it's kind of like, all right, write a movie that satisfyingly connects the themes and the characters and the tones and the whatever of all of those different things and in one area and make it meaningful and also make it pay off all your satisfaction and all your viewing of all these other series. It's insane, and the fact that they're doing this, they're telling stories on this epic level with these great, meaningful character moments is just it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like it's like I can't believe. I think one of the reasons that I wanted to come on this podcast and talk about it a little bit more is it's like I can't believe they did it.
Yeah,
Those sons of bitches did it, and I can't believe they did it.
I just saw the movie last night, and I think I'm still processing everything that I saw because it's like I said, it's pretty long and a lot happens.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, did you cry? Did you shed a tear?
Yes, a little bit.
Was it because you had to use the restroom or because the movie was expensive?
No.
Okay.
It was because basically since November, I've been on a hair trigger.
Yes.
So I've been all over the place. So it's kind of like, people were kind of choking up or whatever. And I don't know if this was just, what's a weird thing is, so listeners of this podcast know that I lived in Paradise, California, and there was a big fire there in November and all this crazy stuff happened. One of the things that affected me in this movie a lot is Thor.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody that's been watching these movies knows that Thor kind of screwed up in both in his last movie and in the last Avengers movies. So, there are several moments where he could have averted this, tragedy.
Right.
And he failed. And what he does in this movie is he essentially becomes basically a big fat slob, and he just descends into
Lebowski.
real
He's Lebowski Thor.
Right, exactly.
He's like walking around in his bathrobe, drinking White Russians.
And he's
just
fat,
your opinion, man.
Yeah, and he's checked out, but he's pretending like he's not checked out.
Right.
He's pretending, and he's basically, and I've read more than a few things on this. It's like a surprisingly honest and realistic depiction of depression and how people deal with depression. So I was very touched by that.
Yeah.
So I was
I think that's one of the things that's actually really interesting about the movie is how they deal about how they take on what the world is like after. So what do heroes do when they failed on such an epic scale? For one thing, half of humanity is gone. Good job, you guys. And so there's that, and then it just seems like there isn't much for them to do. They're heroes, but there's nothing to save.
Right.
Almost. So there's kind of this, what do they do? So Black Widow is still desperately trying to find things to save, and Captain America's doing his support groups or whatever, and well, there's a thing about there's an earthquake and it's underwater, and it's no, there's nothing to be done. But they so desperately want.
Nobody's on that. Yeah, it's an earthquake underwater. Nobody's going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I felt like that stuff was really interesting. I keep thinking about the end and how. Let's go. All right, let me go back here. Let me backtrack a minute. What do you think about Black Widow's sacrifice? Because we're spoiling, so we could just get into it.
So essentially, what happens is we're pretty deep into the podcast now. To can we?
Okay, so here's where I start having some questions.
Okay.
Did Hawkeye and Black Widow know where they were going? That one of them was not coming back? Because wouldn't Nebula give them a fucking heads up? In order to get the stone.
She did. Yeah, she did. But what she said was, and I think it's because they didn't know, is what she said was, Thanos went there with Gamora and he came back alone.
Yeah.
And that's all we know. And we didn't know. And I suspect that Hawkeye and Black Widow went there thinking, well, we'll be able to figure something out.
Right.
We'll be able to once we see what the puzzle is or what the challenge is, somehow we'll do X, Y, and Z, and then when they realized, oh, this is it, this is the thing, I liked it. I like the fact one of the things that I think has been a problem, or one of the hiccups in the MCU is the fact that Black Widow is essentially the main female hero, and she's had her story develop essentially in the background of all these other movies. And she's somebody that started out very damaged, started out really screwed up, started out doing horrible things. And then she's been working with, in the Avengers and in S.H.I.E.L.D. to kind of redeem herself and fight on the side of the good guys. So I liked that she got to make a meaningful sacrifice that would also bring her friend Clint back to his family and all this kind of stuff. And at first I was like, wait, no. And then from her point of view, it's like, if she dies, that's one person dying. If he dies and his family comes back, right, it's like his kids who she knows and is the godmother to lose their father. So it's like, if you calculate up the awful math, it makes sense. Right. I do think
I always I did like them kind of like fighting for who gets to die. Like,
yes,
they're it's weird, but I kind of like it. But I also think the fact that she's the one to do it kind of demonstrated for me that throughout all of these movies, they kind of didn't know what to do with Black Widow.
Yeah,
and,
I agree. Yeah.
So that, and that's kind of, I'm not alone in this. It's kind of one of my issues with a lot of the Marvel movies and the women that are in the movie. And there is this really cool scene in the movie where during the final battle, kind of all the female Marvel, all the female superheroes kind of get in formation and go to get Thanos, backing up Captain Marvel. And I realized that, that scene is totally pandering to me. I get it. Like, I know that that's what it's doing, but that's fine. It worked on me. I also think the whole movie is kind of pandering to its fans. So that's fine. That's what it is.
Well, that's the thing.
It's giving us a conclusion. I'm fine with it giving us that moment, and it was kind of the only moment that like made me a little like verklempt. Like, I would have, maybe I have a cold dead heart, but like Tony dying did not make me cry.
Yeah.
Everybody was sobbing around me. Yeah. I feel like a dick, like I'm a monster, basically, because it didn't make me cry. But I think
it's the open secret of this podcast that you are the true monster.
I am a psychopath. Right. I think Tony Stark has always kept me at arm's length, and I don't know if it's because he's just too quippy or whatever, but I've never been super connected to him, not like Captain America. So if Captain America had died, it might have been a different reaction for me.
Yeah. I agree 100%. That moment seemed very cool, where all the women, female superheroes kind of bunched up, but then it essentially highlighted, wow, they've really been kind of behind the times or behind the whatever.
No shit.
And what they're doing is, hey, we're going to give this moment where all the chicks, this is the way I kind of imagine it being pitched. Hey, we're going to have this moment where all the chicks are line up and they save Spider-Man and then it's just like, oh my God.
It's a moment that shows you how underserved women have been in the Marvel universe, because with the exception of Captain Marvel, which we just got in the 21st Marvel movie, none of these were leads of their movies. I mean, maybe Gamora.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Maybe.
But yeah, I get it. And I agree with you that this is fan service in a lot of ways.
Yes.
But at the same time, for all the bad feedback that fan service gets, there is a place for fan service. And it's usually at the conclusion of a story.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Yeah, I was fine with this scene.
Yeah, where the thing that one of the feats that I thought was so crazy with this movie is there's a ton of fan service.
Yeah, well, the whole movie is.
But it's all earned.
Yeah.
it's not this kind of, hey, we're going to throw this thing out there because the fans will like it and everybody else will be scratching their heads. It's because it serves other stuff that they've planted over 10 years. So I have a question for you.
Yes.
And I want to.
I'll see if I can answer it.
Yeah, this might open up a pretty serious can of worms.
Ooh.
And this is one of the reasons I think I'm stepping away, or I could step away from the Marvel cinematic universe, is there are only 2 movies that have been released in the Marvel cinematic universe that I legitimately do not like.
Okay.
Do not enjoy. And this might come as a surprise because the last time I was on the show, neither one of these movies had come out. One of my marvels with this cinematic universe is that literally every single movie I would at least enjoy watching.
Right. So it sounds like you didn't like Captain Marvel.
I did not like Captain Marvel.
And what's the other one?
Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh, I liked Ant-Man and the Wasp, actually.
I liked it the first time, but it was kind of like, this is my least favorite. It seemed like they. To
be fair, I haven't seen Ant-Man.
Okay. Ant-Man's good, but it's a lark. I mean, and these movies, especially the Ant-Man movie.
I haven't seen Ant-Man and I haven't seen Thor: Dark World.
Thor: Dark World for a lot of people out there, supposedly.
I like Ant-Man and Wasp. I think it's very entertaining. It's probably the lightest of all the Marvel movies. It's as light as a feather.
Yeah, I agree.
The stakes are super low,
yes.
which is fine, by the way.
Which is fun, yeah.
I'm totally fine with a movie that doesn't end with robots fighting or like a blue light shooting up in the sky and aliens are coming, whatever. Like, I'm fine with that. So I like that. I had mixed feelings about Captain Marvel. There was stuff about it that I super loved, and I think Brie Larson is really great. But I didn't like the way the story was told.
Yes.
I think it would have benefited more from a straight narrative beginning to end, kind of similar to what they did with the first Captain America.
I agree 100%.
That's where it kind of lost me, because she spends a lot of the movie, she doesn't know who she is, so therefore we don't know who she is, and then at the end we kind of get this like yay moment, but by then I was like, I was a little annoyed that it took that long to get there, and there was no big like, now we're just like going to start talking about Captain Marvel, but there was no big moment like in Wonder Woman where she goes into no man's land, which I think is one of the best scenes in a movie, and I can't even fucking remember. Like, just a scene that like gives me chills every time I see it. Like, I have like a physical reaction to that scene when I watch it. It's like a big deal to me. And I think a lot of people feel that way, and I think especially women. And I really wanted that from Captain Marvel, and I didn't get it. So then I left kind of disappointed.
Wow, I don't need to say one word. That is 100% my thoughts on Captain Marvel. 100. Like, I love Brie Larson.
I love that it exists.
Yeah.
I wish we had gotten it earlier.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. But I respect that it's there. I want it to be there. I wish it was better, and that's fine.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing is I feel like we never really got to see Captain Marvel in Captain Marvel. We got to see this character that was a warrior, but she didn't really know who she was, and we didn't really know what her deal was. And there's a moment in this movie that's kind of like, that's the Captain Marvel I wanted to see, where she flies up to Peter Parker. She looks at him and says, "Hey, Peter Parker," and he says, "Hi, I'm Peter Parker," and she says, "Hey, Peter Parker. Yeah. I think you got something for me." And she's got this little smirk.
Yeah.
And she's got this.
It's because Brie Larson's awesome.
Right. Yeah, she's got this fun swagger because it's Brie Larson, but she had some swagger at moments in Captain Marvel, but at the same time, it was like she also didn't really know who she was.
Right.
So it doesn't make any sense. Like, why is she's got, she's all wrapped up and rent because she is missing the memory of who she is, but then she's also kind of swinging around with this big dick energy or whatever, which is fun to watch. But then it's like it doesn't. Then these other scenes don't make sense.
Yes,
and it's kind of like she's got the swagger that the hero earns at the end of the movie, like in the middle of the movie, but then she loses it and then it comes back and then. But here it's like, so I'm kind of like,
well, I have the
very
same...
excited. I'm very excited for Captain Marvel 2.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, that's the one I want to see.
Which is kind of the same way I feel actually about Doctor Strange. I feel like Doctor Strange was another one that we don't really get to see what Doctor Strange can do until the end. So I was like, oh, I'm looking forward to Doctor Strange 2 so I could really see how awesome he is.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about him in these later Avenger movies is he's showing up and he's so powerful.
Yeah.
But we've only got a taste of that in the other movies.
Yeah.
I think.
So,
and then this movie on Avenger Endgame, like Captain Marvel is stupid powerful. She's so powerful. And then to kind of like sideline her with the like, I've got other shit to do in the universe and like take her out. I realized that maybe that would have cut the movie down to 90 minutes and that's not what they want. But like, I don't know. It seemed like a kind of a silly like plot device.
Yeah, I do. I mean, she definitely has a Superman problem.
Yes.
Where she's so powerful that it's actually difficult to tell stories.
Yeah.
With them because both of them are just so ridiculously overmatch anybody that goes up against them. Is you essentially have to have these world-destroying crises every single time they put their tights on.
Yeah.
And I did think it was a kind of clever way or a kind of funny way to deal with her
to say like, hey, you're not the only planet in the universe. Fuck off.
Yeah, exactly. Which is essentially the screenwriter's like, look, we have two choices. One, she has to be busy somewhere else, or two, we have to do the thing where the biggest, baddest person gets knocked out, or they lose their powers, or they whatever. So why don't we just like one line of dialogue? Hey, fuck all you guys. I got shit to do elsewhere. Yeah. And then she's gone. And then she comes back when they need her.
Right.
Well, what were we gonna say?
I was just gonna say, like, a couple of other things I wanted to mention was there's a whole thing in the movie about a time heist, right? They're doing like a time travel heist, and I will say that just like other time travel movies, this one boggles my mind, and I find it best not to try to figure out what it means. And one of the, I think, best story arcs in this movie, because. And I have been wondering, is this movie like really like a movie that stands alone? It does not.
No.
It does not at all. And that's okay. But I'm throwing it out there. It doesn't stand alone. You can't just walk into this one, I don't think. Nebula has what I think is probably one of the best arcs in the movie.
Oh, definitely.
And I was very confused though with the different timelines and things. It's like Nebula kills her old self. And I was like, okay, well, does that impact her current state? Like, I was like, I have no idea how this shit works. Even after the Ancient One explains it to me, I'm like, nope, don't got it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is I think they explain the way time works twice, and both times, or each one is different.
Mm-hmm.
So one is, and my understanding from some of the reading I've done is whenever somebody changes something in time in the Marvel universe, at least in the comics, essentially they just create a new timeline, and you just live within the new timeline. So they never really change anything. They just are constantly splitting off, which I think actually is what they're doing here. Is
I mean, I don't really care. It's not like it like ruins the movie for me. I'm like, it's just one of those things that when it happened, I was like, oh, did she just totally fuck herself?
Kind of, yeah. But then it's like, but then the way that Bruce Banner explains it is when you go back in time, what used to be your past becomes your future, and because you can do that, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And it doesn't connect it. And one of the things I thought was so funny is because, we have all these ideas, and we have all these ideas about how time travel works from movies, and they even explicitly reference that in here. And the Hulk, Bruce, Professor Hulk basically just says, yeah, that's not how it works. Don't worry about all that. This is how it really works here.
Right.
And essentially, don't worry about it. You can change whatever you want, and that's it.
Right. But I would say in this movie, if we're going to take, let's just take it as a standalone movie.
Right.
Nebula has the best arc story-wise. And when you look at it that way, it actually should have been Nebula that kills Thanos at the end.
I think, well, yes, but
when you take into the consideration the entire franchise of 22 movies, then it needs to be Iron Man or Captain America.
Yeah, and that's why I would say it's got to be Iron Man, and his last words, "I am Iron Man." It's such a perfect callback.
Well, and ties back to the first movie, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah, it was the last line in the first movie, and that's the thing that I think is so astounding about this movie is all the things that for any normal movie would be a weakness, fan service. It doesn't stand on its own. It's not a complete movie in and of itself. Are all weaknesses in other movies, but because of the way Marvel's done it up until this point, they become these weird jujitsu strengths. So it's kind of like, I can't remember the last time I've been as satisfied and roused and happy in a purely spectacle loving filmmaking kind of way. I don't know.
That's awesome.
Maybe since the original Star Wars trilogy. I don't know. There were moments in this movie where it was just like, holy moly, this is why I love movies. This is why I love film. And this movie is doing things that, that's the other thing is any normal movie that is crammed with I think I read it somewhere, 27 characters. Meaningful, developed characters. Right. 27 is just, it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's literally.
They're not all going to get their moments.
Yeah. They're not all. Yeah. They're not all going to get their
But I think they really, really try because they're, especially in that final battle, you get the awesome, Captain America saying, Avengers assemble, which is awesome. Right. And you just get these, like Spider-Man throughout the entire battle. Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. You get, I know, you're not really into Ant-Man and the Wasp or whatever, but there is this really, I think, a nice moment where they kind of fly off together to get the van, and then they get in the van and they just share like a sweet smile, like they're just so happy to be back together, and there's just all these little moments in that final battle. They're really trying to give everyone that stuff, and one of the things I did like too was Spider-Man kind of interacting with all the different. I felt like Spider-Man was almost like our thread through a lot of the different stuff because he can travel so easily. Yeah, he rides with Valkyrie, he meets Captain Marvel, he runs into Hawkeye, he interacts with Ant-Man and Wasp, all that stuff, and I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree 100%. And you reminded me of a perfect way to crystallize, I think, what this movie does so well is there's a callback in this movie. I mean, Black Panther has 3 lines in this movie, 2 lines in this movie, maybe. But one of them is, so they're in the middle of this battle, and in Civil War, the first movie to have Black Panther in it, Captain America Civil War, they have this big fight. All the heroes have this big fight, and Hawkeye and Black Panther face off against each other for a moment. And Hawkeye basically says, "Hi, I'm Clint. I don't think we've met." And Black Panther's response is, "I don't care. I don't care who you are. You're in my way. I'm going to kick your ass. You're like a nobody." But in this movie,
he's not wrong. But anyway,
yeah, exactly. But in this movie, Hawkeye is like trying to keep the glove from Thanos, and he's running, and he's about to get caught up, and you hear Clint, "Give it to me," and then the camera turns, and it's Black Panther. So it's almost like, so it's kind of like Black Panther has remembered who he is, has remembered his name, they're connected. And it's this kind of little intimate, meaningful that reveals something about the Black Panther. It reveals something about the character. It reveals all these things. And it's paying off a seed that was planted 7 movies ago.
Yes.
You know, but it's also not like a, hey, look at me, look at what we did, look at our clever writing. It's just like a nice little thing that can zip right by you and not mean anything if you're not paying attention. But if you see it and you hear it, it's like, oh, wow, the last time they talked was here. It's just thoughtful little moments like that. There are a million of them in this movie, and it's just so satisfying.
Yeah, I also wanted to make sure I mention how much this movie confirms for me how much I love the Guardians of the Galaxy. Love them. They are my favorite movie. That's my favorite movie, the first Guardians of the Galaxy. It's the one I go back to the most. I clearly have such affection for them that whenever any of them are on screen, I sit up. I'm more interested than I was before. I'm super into them. And I think that Bradley Cooper's work as Rocket is awesome.
Oh,
like,
definitely.
He is so good. And, you know, we don't give props when we should to people who do voice work. And I think he's really great. And I love the Guardians of the Galaxy. And whenever they show up, and I get really excited. And I love the end, the idea of Thor being with them.
Right.
Makes me really happy.
Yeah.
Who do you think
really
is this movie's MVP?
Chris Hemsworth. No doubt. No question.
First of all, that dude is such a comedian. Who knew?
Well, here's the thing is he's a real comedian, and the thing that...
He's too handsome for that. He's got some nerve. You're funny or you're handsome. You don't get to be both.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the thing is he's incredibly funny, and I've heard some criticism that his drunkenness is kind of played for laughs, and I think it is played for laughs.
I think for some
not
people,
laughing at it.
Yeah.
It is obvious that guy is in tremendous pain, and there's a moment.
I think that's working on 2 levels. You can if you want to take it as, hey, he's Lebowski, whatever, that's fine. But if you want to be a little bit more thoughtful about it, you could see that that's somebody who's in a lot of pain and is self-medicating. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. There's a line reading in here where, so they get all the stones back, and they're about to kind of snap their fingers and undo it, and they're trying to decide who gets to do it. There's there's an insane amount of power that goes through this thing. When it happens, it almost killed Thanos. They're trying to, and Thor is like, well, I'm the strongest Avenger. It should obviously be me. And he starts walking towards it, and they're all stopping him. And he has this moment where he goes from kind of like what seems to be clueless bravado to like the mask drops a little bit, and he's all, let me do it. Please let me do it. He goes from commanding to begging in like 2 lines, and you can see like all the pain from like 3 movies, all the failure, all the desperation, everything behind the drinking, everything behind everything just kind of comes out in like 2 lines. It's like, oh, this guy is in more pain than anyone in this movie. And for him to go from that kind of level of comedic whatever to hit that and then back, that's one of the things that I find irritating about the critiques of movies like this is a lot of times some insanely good, nuanced, meaningful, thoughtful character development and acting is kind of buried in under all the spectacle in these movies. And his performance in this movie is, I'm going to say it, it's ridiculous, but I don't care. It's the kind of thing that should be recognized by the Oscars.
It won't.
It won't. But it's kind of like you watch his performance in. If you watch Ragnarok, Infinity War, and that arc of his character is just so good, and what he's doing to basically call back stuff from 2 movies ago and have it inform his character is so satisfying.
He is underappreciated in these movies, I think, because it takes a lot to play a character like he's playing a god, for Christ's sake. Yeah. And he's so charismatic. Yeah. You know, but he's also, you know, really funny and really serious when he needs to be, and he also looks like he would totally beat your ass with that hammer. And that's something. Like he is underappreciated. Definitely. I think
who's yours?
In this movie, I think it's Nebula. It's Karen Gillan. I think she's so good in this, and I mean, she's playing like a victim of abuse, basically, and someone who, you know, in earlier movies wasn't strong enough to fight back, and in this one she is. I think she's really great. But if you look at like the whole franchise, then you're talking about like, you know, Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, really, at that point. I mean,
I would definitely give you Robert Downey Jr. I'm kind of shocked at how Chris Evans just sits there.
I don't think that's true at all. I think it's a testament to how great he is as Captain America that I feel really connected to that character. And I really care what happens to him. And the ending really sticks with me on this one because I really like him and I want that for him so bad.
Yeah, I agree. Let me step my comments back.
He's not sarcastic. He's not, you know, ironic. He's very, you know, literal and good. Like, always good intentions, always looking on the bright side. Like, even when he's like, you know, without all the people now, the water's cleaner or whatever. And she's like, like, no, not okay. He's like, you know, it was still like too soon, dude. And he was like, sorry, force of habit. Like the idea that he's still he's trying so hard to always look at the bright side is maybe something I can relate to. So maybe that's why I love Captain America so much.
I agree with you 100%. I love that character. I love characters like that. And I think it really irritates me because there's so many screenwriters and directors and whatever that they want their heroes to be different. And usually the way that they make them different is they make them flawed and wrecked and weird and whatever. But we're living in, you know, this is my old soapbox. We're living in such a landscape of flawed anti-heroes, creeps, crazy people, whatever. The freak, if you want to have a character that is a freak, have them be the upstanding straight shooter, nice guy, nice girl that doesn't get twisted and messed up. It's like they get knocked down and they get back up and said, all right, I got to keep going. And then they keep, you know, walking on.
And he's got America's ass.
That's right. That's what I think is
actually I could make a case also that Ant-Man is the MVP in this movie, by the way.
Oh, definitely.
Because he moves it along. He moves it along. It was his
idea. That's right.
It's his idea. But he also, like, in situations, like, he keeps it light. Yeah. Which is good. He keeps it moving along. I actually really love Paul Rudd's scene with his daughter, who's 5 years older now, and like as he's trying to come to the grips with, you know, to face that he's missed 5 years, and then it just was like, you're so big, you know. It's like such a nice little moment. I really could make the case for so many of these actors and characters. So after this, we get Spider-Man. And another I almost said Game of Thrones. Guardians of the Galaxy and Doctor Strange and Black Panther.
Supposedly.
And maybe Black Widow, but probably not. I don't
know. They're actually, I think they're starting to shoot in a couple months. I could be wrong.
Is it a prequel?
I don't know. That's a thing that's so interesting is, okay, so they have Spider-Man that comes out in July, and then the next movie after that is unknown. There are movies that are coming out next year, but I don't think any one of them like I believe Black Panther 2 is definitely coming, but they haven't officially announced it. Doctor Strange 2 is coming, but they haven't officially announced it. The Eternals is coming, but they haven't officially announced it.
Well, and Game of Thrones is happening. Or Game of Thrones, Guardians of the Galaxy. Jesus Christ! You know what it is? I wrote in my notes like GOTG, and I keep reading it like it's just Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. So all those are coming, but we don't know. Like there could be other movies that we don't know. Like there could be a Captain America with the Falcon as Captain America. There could be.
I thought I read somewhere that they're making like a streaming series of that's Winter Soldier and the Falcon.
They are, now that you say that. So I don't know how that. Yeah, I don't know how that plays into this, because wouldn't it mean that the Falcon is essentially, it would be the Captain America and the Winter Soldier, the show. That's interesting.
And it's a comedy. And they're roommates, and they just live like in a 2-bedroom apartment in New York, and
it could be
they're dating people and having lots of trouble, and that's all it is. It's a romantic comedy, actually.
Right. Now that you say that, wow, that would be crazy.
I want to see the Marvel romantic comedy.
Winter Soldier, and it's like a huge gay. Yeah, that would be insane if they had the balls to go that far. But what I was going to say is, so they're having a Wanda and Vision show on Disney Plus, but Vision is dead. They're having a Black Widow movie.
That's the twist.
Right. It's a very twisted half remake of Psycho, where the corpse of the Vision is in the basement, and Scarlet Witch runs a hotel.
Sweet.
And then Black Widow, she's got a movie, but she's dead. And then
it's going to be a short movie.
And then Loki, Loki has a streaming series, but he's dead. Now that I think about it,
but he's not dead anymore, right? Like, I mean, there's Loki on that timeline. Like he took one of the Infinity Stones and disappeared, right? Remember that? That's why Captain America and Iron Man had to.
But then they went back, and that's an interesting question.
So then he's probably out there skipping around, doing whatever.
You know what?
What? Did I just solve that for you?
You did.
Oh, I'm so smart.
Because what happens is, because that creates a new future where he's still. It's like he kind of came back the same way Gamora came back.
Right.
A past self of him got connected to this timeline.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I was so happy to see Gamora.
You're right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. He's not dead.
There you go. I fixed it.
Anyway.
You're welcome, Marvel. I fixed it.
Can I have my $20 million, please?
I will check my mailbox.
For those of you listening at home, I am broadcasting from the living room of my apartment in Chico. So the clanging and the banging and the microwave beeping is just a sign of life for
it's totally fine.
In our happy Smith home here.
We all have lives outside of this podcast, and sometimes in that life we make noise. It's fine.
Right.
Sometimes. We are running out of time. Do you want to tell people where they can find you on the internet?
You can find me at 3daysinparadise.tv. That's the website for the documentary project on the campfire that I'm working on. You can also find me at Jet Jurgens on Twitter, or 3 Days in Paradise on Twitter or Instagram or wherever. And that's about it.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's where you can find me.
You can find Dorking Out at dorkingout.com, and on Twitter and Facebook at Dorking Out Show. And you can find me at The Sonia Show on Twitter and thesoniashow.com. And Margot will be back in our next episode. And actually, we're going to have a special guest, too. Oh, actually, that's a week later. Never mind.
It'll special guest.
It'll
Who
be.
is it?
Well, next week it's just me and Margot.
Okay.
And then the following week it's me and Margot and Adam Risky from F This Movie.
The Adam Risky.
The Adam Risky.
Wow.
We are so excited. We're always happy when he comes on, and we're always happy when you come on.
Well, half of you, but that's fine.
Margot hasn't seen this movie yet. That's why she's not really here.
Well, actually, that's what's funny is because it could refer to Margot or it could refer to David. But anyway.
Or me.
Or half the oh yeah, I guess so. Maybe nobody's happy that I'm back on the show.
Oh, that's so sad.
Thank you for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
It's super fun to have you on as always.